originating here. The Earth is...
Hi, thanks for watching. I'm going to take another look at the Aran Islands down here on the west coast of Ireland, down in Galway Bay. There's an astonishing amount of dry stone walls on these islands. In fact, there's so much that if you were to gather all the walls and put them all together, they would take up 1/4 of the surface of the island, so that's a lot, right? And you can see they're like everywhere. So have a look at them later and have a closer look at this cliff. The cliff only goes down this side of the island. And I was trying to think, well, what could it have been? What if it was part of a giant tree? Right? And, for example, if you were to drill through here, you would hit all the tree rings, which is what we're seeing here. And the reason why there's a cliff, I don't know whether by accident or design, but we'll have a close look at that later. But I would imagine that these lines would continue. And the same applies here. This high point would continue out to here, and there would be other layers down below it, just like up here. So maybe this island at one time came out to here. Maybe that's what size it was. And we have a look at the cliffs later, as I said. So what makes you think it's a tree? Right. When I say giant tree, I don't mean these. I mean these are mere saplings compared to the trees I'm talking about. And this one here is a good illustration that all trees are no perfect circles, and the circumference changes, and there's bumps and lumps all over trees, like they rise up the sides of branches and stuff, right? So let's look at it from a different side, right? And we'll go down a bit. When you look at it from this angle, you can see the separate tree rings. As would happen had this been a branch. So the same thing applies here. You can see the different tree rings. And half it's missing. Right. For example, if this was worn away, then you would see the different layers that we see on the island, right? Again, the same thing applies here. And this also shows you the cracks with the length of some of these trees. And we find lots of cracks on the surface of the earth. Again, the same thing. Right, so this is what I'm saying. If this eventually we told that they were turned to stone or some kind, so this would happen. You would see different layers, and the edges would wear away easier than the rest. Right? And this artist has actually used the tree rings to help create his art. And this artist probably seen this piece of wood and immediately envisaged a dog's face. It made it happen. Right, so what I'm saying is this could be a giant log stuck in the mud. And then I thought, well, let's see if there's anything nearby that could back up that. So just on the mainland here, we have all these hills. Check them out. And they're all the same. Yeah, a bit of imagination, that could be good. Right, where am I going now? When I said earlier, did this cliff appear by accident or design? Maybe it was a bit of both. Maybe the accident exposed something of value to be exploited. I don't know, I'm just guessing. Right. If and when it was a tree and it was damaged, then the tree's immune system kicks in, and for example, if an insect burrows into the tree, then it would fill the hole with sap to prevent the insect laying eggs. And the same if there's sometimes cracks appear on trees and you'll see the sap bleeding out the tree. Right, so if the tree's turned to stone, what about the sap? And right, a minute. Right, what does it mean when a tree bleeds sap? Right. Much like the veins in the body, a tree's vascular system transports sap. The appearance of tree sap bleeding outside of the tree trunk, however, can help determine the health of a tree. It may not be an issue depending on the type of tree or time of year you see it. Quite possibly a bleeding tree is in distress due to a disease, or it could be that you pruned the tree too early or late to cause it to bleed sap. Learn when to be concerned about tree bleeding sap and whether or not I don't care about that. What I'm looking for is, there's the different kinds of tree that it says here. Bleeding sap isn't always detrimental, and sometimes we can even put it to good use. One of the best examples is when the sap is collected from maple trees each year, which is done by tapping the trunk of the sugar maple. It can take up to 50 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of maple syrup. Wow. The sap of birch trees also can be used to make syrup, as well as homemade beverages such as birch wine, birch mead and birch beer, similar to root beer. What is tree sap used for? This, I believe, is a birch tree being tapped, and there's nothing like the memory of weekends filled with indulgent breakfast foods and covering your plate with sugary maple syrup. As children, maple syrup seemed to be liquid gold from the heavens. But it's actually from tree sap, not a maple syrup tree. Although the final result is sticky goodness, tree sap is actually a watery substance that is the lifeline of a tree. People often think that sap and tree resin are the same, but they're actually two completely different substances. Mostly all trees produce sap, but not all trees produce resin. Tree resin can be found in trees that belong to the Pinaceae family, such as pine, fir and cedar. Deciduous trees, a tree or shrub that sheds its leaves annually, don't produce resin as coniferous trees do. But coniferous evergreen trees like pine, cedar and Douglas fir can produce both sap and tree resin. Something else that comes from trees, amber. Amber is a fairly common, easy to work gem material, a constant wonder to the eyes. It typically occurs in various shades of yellow, orange and brown colours. On the other hand, pieces of green, blue or violet tints due to the extreme fluorescence are rare. Amber also has a wide range of transparency. So, this is amber, right, and this is from a tree. So what happens when the tree turns to stone? What happens to the amber? It's just like that film, Jurassic Park. Insects get caught in it. So anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there. Right. Before we look, here's what they say. Today, the islands are a spectacular grey-green labyrinth. The maze of walls enclosing tiny green fields, and they mean tiny. Occasionally enclosing a shaggy horse or a cow. How quaint. The 3 islands occupy only 18 square miles. I stand corrected. According to one estimate, they contain 1,500 miles of walls. And I still think it's mind-blowing. I'll start with the smallest of the islands. Right, before we do that, we'll have a look at what they say about the islands. We'll go to Wikipedia, the biggest library in the world, and see what they say. They tell you where they are and where to find them. And I'm interested in what they say about the islands themselves. So, little is known about the first inhabitants to cross over to the islands, but they likely came across in search of a safe haven from attack. If the first part is true, that little is known, then we could replace the word likely with maybe, possibly, or never. The islands are made up of a carboniferous limestone and do not have a naturally occurring topsoil. Keep that in mind. Early settlers augmented the soil with seaweed and sand from the shore. Dry stone walls were built to protect the soil. Really. 7 prehistoric stone forts used the word old instead of prehistoric. They are on the islands, and we have Don Ogassa is the best known, and we'll look at that later, and it's on the edge of a 100-metre high cliff. Right, and then they go straight, this takes us back to 1100 BC, right, and then they jump through there right up to 490 AD. Wow, nothing happened between then and then. And this obviously is the Christians coming. And there's a ring fort that's on in this here. So I don't know why they call them ring forts. They could be there for some other reason. And there's a castle built by some called O'Brien, some wealthy shit, and they say that was the 14th century. And then the 14th, and then they go on to the 1820s, so they don't know a lot, right? So, and then they go on about the geology. Now, the limestone of the lower Carboniferous. Now, Carboniferous is a geological period, and it tells you all this crap about different lengths of time, because they need millions and millions of years for the lives to work. So it's formed as sediments in a tropical sea approximately, 350 million years ago, and compressed into horizontal strata with fossil corals, cranoids, sea urchins and ammonites, right? So this after this Lemurian age, apparently, right? So it's all nonsense, and there's limestone pavements, and they're all over the world. They ain't just here on these islands, right? So, and these are boulders that they say were washed up on the shore, right? And here's the person standing here to give you a size of these boulders. So they're coastal boulder deposits, right? And another great view of the islands and these cliffs. And I think this is relatively recent. I don't think that's old at all. That's a replacement. And here's all these fossils that make up these horizontal, well, that's what they say anyway. And it's fishing is a small but important part of the area. I think learning how to work a ship is also important. Right, so that was Wiki. So let's go here. This is an Irish mob, obviously the Cladda design. Right, the Aran Islands, the history. Right, so here's a brilliant picture of the walls. Now, it's like you can't help but notice them. Right. And they built the walls to protect the soil. Really. Right. Again, they tell you where they are. And here's the same cliffs. That's a lot of sea urchins. Right. Well, the Aran Islands lay untouched by humans for several thousands of years, allowing its unique ecosystem to build up without interference. Little is known about the first inhabitants to cross over to the islands, but it is likely they came across in search of fertile land to farm, or a supply of fish to feed off. They weren't hiding for anybody. Right. Luckily, the land was perfectly suited for both, with the highest, most rocky parts facing the Atlantic, sheltering the low-lying fertile soil on the other side. The islands would also have been largely covered by forests, holy shit, which they cut down to use as fuel and building materials. Unfortunately, this left the soil with no anchor to stay in place, and rapid erosion occurred thereafter. In-depth analysis of the soil since then has proved that these early islanders' solution to the problem was to mix seaweed, sand and animal manure into the soil and painstakingly tend it to ensure their food source didn't go away. When the wood was gone, the islanders brought peat over from the mainland as their source of fuel. No mention they built their walls. Right. So the Aran Islands are home to some of the oldest archaeological sites in Ireland. Firstly, a network of stone walls totaling 1600 kilometres spans across all three islands, dating from prehistoric times. This would have been able to contain livestock and in some cases may have defined land boundaries. From the early Christian period, there are clockins or beehive huts perched on the edge of the cliffs and used by monks for reflection and meditation. At one stage, there were up to a dozen monasteries established in this moor alone, with Enda of Aran, he was a warrior king from Ulster, establishing the first one. Right, so they don't tell you who built the walls and how long it took. Right, so, yeah. So on here we were told there was a forest that disappeared without leaving a trace. There's not a stump on the island, and there's no trace of much wood. Right, so, here, right, amusing planet. So, this again tells you Travelling across rural Ireland from east to west, one thing arouses curiosity among many first-time visitors is the hundreds of miles of stone walls that meander across farmlands in all directions as far as one can see. These stone walls are nothing odd or unusual for the Irish population, but visitors question them a lot. Actually, everybody questions them a lot. Although Ireland's landscape is mostly green, you only have to dig a little way beneath its lush, verdant carpet to discover that underneath the rolling greens lie a thick layer of hard blue limestone. This famous blue limestone is found all over the country, and it lies under more than half of the island. Right, so you see a lot of grass, you don't see a lot of crops. I don't see many. This is about it. Right, that's marshland. Right, so Ireland is mostly a rocky island composed of carboniferous limestone for carboniferous sea coal for coal sea wood. Formed about 300 years ago. At that time, Ireland was part of a shallow sea between two land masses near the equator. Really. Shifting continents raised a part of the seabed above the sea level, which later became Ireland, and over hundreds of millions of years, the mud evolved into a tough, finely grained limestone just below its surface. These rocks extracted from the earth became the most commonly used building material for the Irish population. From the Stone Age tombs on the Burren to the Iron Age hill forts on Irish Moor, to the battered castles and monasteries of the Middle Ages, these stones are everywhere. Particularly ubiquitous are the stone walls that crisscross the country. The stone of these walls are usually unearthed from the field itself. The fields need to be cleared of the stones in order to be farmed, and since there is no easy way to get rid of the rocks, the farmers use the material at hand to build low walls to delineate each other's property. Right. The walls are nothing more than boulders piled on top of each other without mortar. They are often quite low and not very stable, because of which they need constant maintenance. The instability of the walls, however, work in their favour, making them good barriers against livestock that are reared in the area. Animals who have learned from experience that they collapse rather easily keep themselves away from the walls. Well, I'm going to disagree with that whole statement. I don't know how sheep decide that the walls are easily to collapse, and if that was the case, if they fell apart so easily, why they lasted for thousands of years? Right, so here they go on about the islands again, but they don't tell you how the walls are built or who built them, how long it took. I'll look into that in a wee minute. Right, so it tells you the names of them, and its inhabitants have over thousands of years created life where there previously was none, making things grow out of the rocks by developing a unique farming technique where dirt dug from cracks in the rock are combined with composted seaweed. Today, the islands are impossibly green, with low stone walls dividing the farming fields, segregating livestock and keeping the thin layer of soil from blowing away. Right. So that's the walls. And there's quite a lot of them. In fact, they're everywhere. And there's all these sea urchins and stuff. It's in layers, so they say. Right, so I'm questioning this anyway. It's definitely questionable. That's no. That is. Right, so what they're saying is, what this site are saying is these islanders scraped the dirt because the entire island is covered with this limestone, right? So what they're saying is that the first inhabitants way back scraped the dirt. I don't know if that was after the forest appeared and disappeared, but anyway, when they came here, they scraped the dirt from between the stones, mixed it with seaweed and manure and spread it everywhere, and then because it was so thin, they then built stone walls to protect the soil. That's the way it's phrased, right? So there's no mention of how long it took and how many people took part in this wall building. And it's here, right? So this island is widest is, well, 2.5 miles. Right, and here is under 2 miles. Right, just over 1.5 miles in fact. Right, so it's not very big. But there's an astonishing amount of dry stone walls, all shapes and sizes, and there may be method in the madness when they were originally put up, but like I said earlier, they were inherited. There's no way what you're looking at fits in with what I've read earlier about what they say, why they built them. That makes absolutely no sense. And I do not see any people anywhere at any time doing the astonishing amount of work required to put up these walls for no apparent reason. Right, so it was nothing to do with the seaweed manure nonsense, right? And look at some of the shapes of some of them. And then there's these, like, parallel lines. What's that about? Right, so this is a wall, and this may be a road that's been cut through. And this was the wall. Right. So the amount of work, just on this island alone, right, for what they say, what you would do would be build a wall that would protect you from the prevailing wind. That'd be some kind of system, but this is no any kind of system. This is incredible, this is unbelievable. And the amount of work that's required is astonishing. Right. It takes 3 people, various degrees of experience, 1 day to complete 2 yards. Each yard weighs approximately 1 ton, which means they can do 60 yards a month, which would be, well, less than half a mile in a year. Right, so on these islands, right, we've got 1,765 tons to the mile, right? And that's multiplied by 1,500 miles, which will give you a total of just north of 2.5 million tons, right? The Pyramid of Giza, the big one, weighs about 5.75 million tons, right? So that's just under 6 million tons, which means that if they got all the stones from the islands together, then it would be, well, half the size of that, pretty much. It's a lot of work for nothing. So why would you have all these different walls when it would not be required? So this is why I say they were inherited. At some stage in the past, they were put up like all the walls everywhere. Well, a race and culture before we got here. That's my opinion. Right, so second island, same thing. Miles and miles of walls. And this is what the islands were like before they put the seaweed and the dirt and stuff. You buying that? So they're just miles and miles of walls. And you can see they're right on the edge. Some I think have been worn away. But the walls go right to the edge of, well, what do you call that? It's not as if it's, it's like this. And this looks like that was there before the walls. Right, now. That could be animal tracks or something. Right. Anyway, I was going to look at these cliffs on the bigger of the islands. Another airport. Although why you would go, I have no idea. Right, so here's the big island, and it's the cliff. It's just like as if it's been worked on or something at some time. Right. Anyway. So like you can see, there's absolutely, and this is the thing about this as well. So if they were doing seaweed thing, right, and that's what the walls were for, okay, then why are all these fields empty? Why is that? Why do they look like tree rings? But there's no manure, seaweed in these fields. So I don't buy the explanation that they came out with. Right, like back to these cliffs. Right. Aye, so they look as if there's lots of right angle corners. And I'm not buying that it's caused by nature. I don't buy that. Because there's lots of them. And there's this giant wall. How long do you think it took to build that, and how many people took part? So I think these monuments and stuff, I think these were built after the walls, but the original walls were way back. Right. And this wall was round the edge of the shape of the cliff. So would that mean the cliff was there before the wall? Right. So again, these cliffs are got all these markings on them and straight cut edges. So I don't know. I just don't think it's natural somehow. Maybe somebody caused it. I don't know. Maybe something caused it. But like I said earlier, half the island's missing. And check that out. Right. So there's lots of these pits right along the coast. I have no idea. Right. This I'll come back to. Right. But check this out. That's all right natural somehow. Could be wrong. And then there's this. And this is a semicircle, right? I believe that the original probably came out to here somewhere. That's what I think. Right. So there's more of these straight edges. Again. So I don't know what to make it. They're all over the place. Right. And there's even some cliffs up here, right? And they're like, come on. Right. So let me show you this thing here. This, I call it the wormhole. Where is it? Right. There you go. Right. This is a wormhole. Right. And this is a view for obviously down here somewhere. Right. But check this out. Unique Ireland, welcome to the Serpent's Lair, or Innismore, aka the Wormhole. Right. So this will be all the ammonites and stuff. This is sea urchins that's made up these layers. Check this out. Right. How do you think that happened then? Right. Another brilliant view here. Although you'll often hear it referred to as the Serpent's Lair and the Wormhole, the official name for one of our island's most unique attractions is Palm the Beast. You'll probably find around, but it says here, although the finely cut edges would lead you to believe that this is a man-made swimming pool, it was in fact formed naturally, which is a little bit mental to think when you look at the photo above. And then it tells you it has a number of underground channels which connect to the ocean. When the tide is in, water rushes into the hole via an underground cave and forces the water over the edges, filling the hole from above. So what they're saying is this was formed by the waves. Right. So check this out.
Yeah, it's an incredible step for the women diving, and we saw the strength of the women here at this event, you know, challenging the weather and really pushing the boundaries and showing how strong we are. So it's going to be nice to stand underneath the men for the rest of the season and just, you know, push the sport to its limits.
Well, as we're going to see this mad Colombian jumping off a 27-meter board into the middle of a hole in Ishmore. It makes for some interesting viewing, to say the least.
Standing up there, it's so scary, and you kind of block everything out, but hitting the water and coming up and hearing the crowd cheer and you know, kind of giving you a sign that, yeah, I'm happy. Yeah, it was really, really nice.
When we saw it again on the list of competitions, it's tough. It's there's places where you're relaxed, and this one's definitely not one of them. That said, at the end of the competition, everyone feels in a really good mood, because you know you've done something that a lot of people would just it would blow their minds.
Yeah, Mac, we've seen her today with the helicopter coming in and taking or lifting a couple away. Does that sort of put more fear into you as well, or is that just a part and nature of the competition?
It definitely affects you when you see people hurting themselves and needing hospital treatment. It's mentally challenging. You know what the risks are, and it's right in front of your face.
I'll finish with this. Ley lines. And here's the ley line going straight across to Galway Bay. Only it stops here. And if it went straight on, I'm guessing it would hit the islands. Right? I don't know. Well, thanks for watching. Please comment,